Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have another episode in our Spoiler Spotlight series in which I talk about, well, spoilers and tell you what my thoughts are on them. But before that, just a quick reminder to click subscribe if you enjoy my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and your support means everything to me. And today we're going to be talking about Desert Lotus. It's a legendary artifact with no mana cost and tap, sacrifice Desert Lotus, add 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast spells, and plot 0. You may pay 0 and exile this card from your hand. Cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost. Plot only as a sorcery. So when I first saw this card, I was absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe they were trying to do this again because this is actually really close to Black Lotus. Now obviously the fact that you have to wait a turn because of plot is a huge deal, but even so you're getting a huge mana boost for basically nothing, which is absolutely incredible. Now obviously there are some downsides to the card. For starters, it's a legendary artifact, so you can't really have multiple of them in play, although of course that's not that much of a downside seeing as you're going to want to be sacrificing it on a big turn to get a huge boost. There's obviously the other line on the card as well, which says spend this mana only to cast spells. Now that does seem like a little bit of a downside, but at the end of the day, most of the time you're going to be wanting to cast spells with the mana anyway. I think this is meant to be there as a way to safeguard against you using the mana to recur the Desert Lotus with certain abilities from the graveyard, which is fair enough because it could be kind of broken if you could just infinitely loop it that easily. There are of course a bunch of ways where you can recur this, and there's a lot of different cards that are going to be doing that, but still that failsafe on there makes sure that the worst case abuses don't happen as often. So the first comparison to be made with this card of course is that it's very similar to Time Spiral's Lotus Bloom, which had you wait 3 turns before you could cast it. The big difference here of course is that this only requires 1 turn, and it must be said that Lotus Bloom wasn't really a card that ended up breaking too many formats. It was kind of too slow at 3 turns, so I think what Wizards are trying to do is push the envelope a little bit and see if by removing 2 turns from the clock they suddenly make this card good. I think they might have gone too far in the other direction. Having to only wait a turn to essentially get Black Lotus seems incredibly powerful to me. Honestly, I hope they've playtested it a lot because it seems like it could be very easily broken. What kind of decks are going to really want this though? I think obviously in Commander it's going to be very much kind of Storm decks that want to be using this kind of effect and the plot mechanic in general. Being able to just have a really huge turn where you get a lot of stuff and play it is exactly what you want to be doing with Storm in the first place, so having access to extra mana on that turn seems pretty good, even if you do have to set it up a little bit by waiting for that big turn. I think that does limit the card a little bit in Commander. I think it's going to be better in 60 card formats because having to wait an entire turn to get access to that mana does mean that it's kind of useless if you draw it in the middle of a Storm combo situation because you can't really get to cast it. But there's other decks where this is going to be very good too. The fact that it has no mana value means that you can cascade or discover into this very easily, at which point you're getting a Black Lotus in Commander. Now that is obviously a great scenario if you're playing that kind of deck, so I do feel that it's going to have potential in those kind of situations. There's also a bunch of cards that allow you to suspend stuff and put counters on it equal to its mana value. That's obviously also going to work very nicely with Desert Lotus because it's going to come in with no counters as far as I know, and you're going to get to play it immediately. So all of these kind of situations mean that this card is going to be very good, but the question is whether it's generically good enough to just see play as one of the best cards in the format in many different decks. I think it might well be. It's very difficult for me to evaluate it exactly, but it does have a ton of potential, I think. And for real, I do think they might have gone too far this time, and this might end up being a design mistake, but I guess only time will tell and we'll find out. Hopefully it doesn't end up costing too much, but seeing as it's a mythic, it may well do so. So there you have it. Those have been my thoughts on this new spoiler. What do you think about this card? Please let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.